Good evening. I'm Brett Baer coming to you tonight from Seoul, South Korea. We are covering the president's trip here, and we have two big stories for you tonight from here and back at home, where investigators are piecing together what led a man to kill more than 24 people in a small Texas church. This as we begin to put the faces of the lives cut short, including small children in that church. President Trump weighed in on the shooting from Japan before leaving to land here in Seoul just a few hours after spending time with Prime Minister Abe in Japan. He talked about the allies discussing a host of issues, North Korea topping that list. I spoke exclusively with the Prime Minister of Japan, and we will air that here in just a few moments. But beginning here in Seoul, we start with Chief White House correspondent John Roberts.
President Trump called the Sutherland Springs massacre an act of evil, but blamed it on a man he called deranged and not on the weapon he carried.
I think that mental health is your problem here. This isn't a guns situation. I mean, we could go into it, but it's a little bit soon to go into it.
Too soon for the president, but not for many Democrats.
I reject the notion that it is too soon to act. If not now, then when? We should ban assault weapons and bump stocks today.
There are common sense measures, Connecticut has implemented them, that have actually reduced gun violence. These laws work.
In past shootings like Orlando, President Trump has remarked on Sunday.
Fortunately, somebody else had a gun that was shooting in the opposite direction. Otherwise, it would have been as bad as it was. It would have been much worse.
The shooting weighed heavily on the president's state visit to Japan and talks that dealt primarily with the existential threat posed by North Korea.
Strategic patience is over.
While President Trump has been roundly criticized for his strident language toward Kim Jong-un, the newly re-elected Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe emerged from the meetings to say there is no daylight between them.
Japan consistently supports the position of President Trump when he says that all options are on the table. Through the talks over 2 days, I have once again strongly reaffirmed that Japan and U.S. are 100% together.
Some people said that my rhetoric is very strong, but look what's happened with very weak rhetoric over the last 25 years.
Twice in recent months, North Korea has test-fired nuclear-capable missiles over Japan's northern island of Hokkaido. At a press conference, Abe was asked why Japan didn't attempt to shoot them down. That's when President Trump jumped in with a Buy American pitch.
He will shoot them out of the sky when he completes the purchase of lots of additional military equipment from the United States.
The proof, President Trump said? Saudi Arabia's weekend shoot-down of a Houthi missile aimed at Riyadh Airport. A U.S.-built THAAD anti-missile system blew it out of the sky. But in the middle of all the tough talk, an olive branch of sorts to North Korea. After meeting with relatives of Japanese citizens abducted by the North, President Trump appeared to call an audible, suggesting Kim Jong-un could buy himself some goodwill and a possible opening.
If he would send them back, that would be the start of something I think would be just something very special.
North Korea will be top of the agenda when President Trump meets later on today with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. In a tweet early this morning, President Trump called Moon, quote, a fine gentleman, and said, we will figure it all out. But, Brett, they have to figure out more than just North Korea, because President Trump is not at all happy about the state of the trading relationship between the United States and South Korea. Brett.
John Roberts here in Seoul. John, thank you.
The Japan and U.S. alliance is the cornerstone for peace and stability here in the Asia-Pacific region. And naturally, the leaders have to be able to have a relationship of trust and confidence, as well as mutual understanding. That would have to be decisively important for the strengthening of the alliance. And for that to have purpose in the last year after President Trump has won the election, I went to New York in November to meet with him, and I was able to have good communication with him. And ever since then, for 6 times I have met with him, and this time as well, I have enjoyed playing golf as well as having had dinner with him. It was indeed a very enjoyable occasion, and for myself and President Trump to share, the time to build a relationship of trust will further deepen mutual understanding. And before President Trump visited Japan, Mrs. Ivanka Trump, advisor to the president, visited Japan, and she has attended the World Assembly for Women. And she has given a wonderful speech. She stated that Abenomics is womenomics, and that has impressed many people in Japan. With President Trump's visit to Japan this time, I very much hope that we will be able to further solidify the U.S.-Japan alliance. And I hope that I will be able to take time to fully discuss with President Trump on various international challenges, including North Korea.
The main issue, obviously, that hangs over this trip is North Korea. North Korean missiles have flown over your nation 2 times in recent months, leaving your citizens rattled, leaving the world wondering what is next here. Is there anything short of military action that you think can be done to force North Korea to denuclearize?
North Korea back in 1991, Kim Il-sung himself, who is the grandfather of Kim Jong-un, had committed himself for denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, and at the time of the 1994 Framework Agreement had once again promised not to develop nuclear weapons. And in 2005, when the Six-Party Talks Agreement was put forth, once again, North Korea promised to abandon or dismantle the nuclear program. And every time of those occasions, Japan and the United States promised to provide support to the North Korea. But North Korea has used those talks just to gain time to further develop the nuclear program, as well as missiles. So North Korean dialogue just for the purpose of dialogue is meaningless. That is our experience. Now is the time to further put pressure on North Korea. And in that sense, the sanctions that were agreed in the United Nations resolutions, which were put forth in September of our international community, must firmly implement those sanctions. We have decided to cut back 30% of oil as well as other petroleum products exported to North Korea. And as winter comes on, this will be quite effective on North Korea. Since the United Nations Security Council resolution had been adopted unanimously, including with the support of China as well as Russia, so all countries that need to firmly implement the resolution will be extremely important.
You and your party just recently won a landslide victory here, and part of that was on a platform of national security. Do you envision changing your pacifist constitution, Article 9, to enable Japan to have more offensive capabilities?
The Liberal Democratic Party, ever since the founding of the party, has always put forward as the party policy the amendment of the Constitution that is to not have offensive capabilities for Japan. That is not the reason why we are putting forth such a policy now. In the election campaign this time, we have also put the amendment of the Constitution as the main issue, and we have actually delineated 4 items of the amendment of the Constitution in our campaign, and we won the election consequently. What we have promised in the campaign is to amend the Article 9 of the Constitution to clearly mention the presence of the self-defense force in the Constitution, and that is what we have put forward to the Japanese people. And the purpose of that was to put an end to the debate which contends that the self-defense force is now in violation of our Constitution. In any case, in order to actually amend the Constitution, we need to have a 2/3 vote in both the upper as well as the lower houses. And then on top of that, we need to go through the national referendum ultimately. But first and foremost, what we need to do is to deepen our debate within the national diet.
Right, so there's logistics to get that done. Short of that happening, should the U.S., do you believe, try to shoot down the next missile that flies over Japan? And do you believe that the U.S. has the capability to do that?
We are witnessing very solid bonds between Japan and U.S. based upon our alliance and in accordance with the Japan-U.S. Security Treaty. The United States has a duty to defend Japan if and when Japan is under attack. And under this very strong U.S.-Japan alliance, whenever an attack is made on Japan, Japan and the United States will work closely together to respond to those threats, and we have been confirming this. It is a fact that North Korea is going ahead with developing the missiles, but Japan and the U.S. should join our forces and work closely so that we will be able to protect the peace and security for Japan, as well as for the whole region. And our missile defense technology has already attained a very high level.
Are you worried about Kim Jong-un?
What would be the stance and the attitude that Kim Jong-un may take going forward? It is exactly what not just myself, but the whole world is watching keenly. North Korea does have very diligent people and is bestowed with rich natural resources. So as long as they're able to take the right policy, I'm sure the North Korean people will be able to enjoy a better life. What we are doing now is the international community has applied pressure to North Korea so that North Korea will have to change its policy. And we would like to create a situation whereby North Korea itself would come to us and say that they will change their policy and that they would like to engage in a dialogue.
Last thing, where do you see the future of U.S., Japan on the economy? And what tangible things came out of this visit for both countries?
The bilateral economic relations between Japan and the U.S. should be something that both of our countries benefit from this economic relationship. Now Japanese companies that invest in the United States have created 860,000 jobs directly. For example, if you would take the automotive industry and take in consideration the dealerships selling the Japanese cars, including related jobs as well, overall, those Japanese companies have been creating 1.5 million jobs in the United States. The outstanding foreign development by the Japanese companies in the United States is next only to the United Kingdom, about $421.1 billion. And those American workers working for Japanese companies enjoy a very high level of income on average. Their wage level is set to be $81,000. And even this year, after the Trump administration had started, an additional 17,000 jobs have been created by the Japanese companies. And this is the #1 amongst all the foreign countries. The Asia-Pacific region is set to be the growth center of the world. What is important is to create a free and fair economic arena in the region. Of course, it is very important to have that dialogue and trade between our two countries. But what would be very important would be within this region for Japan and the U.S. together to build free and fair economic and investment rules. And what would result in bringing in significant benefits to the United States as well as Japan, and would also be conducive to the sustained growth in this region. In that sense, the inclusive dialogue of what I have just mentioned between our Deputy Prime Minister and your Vice President Pence, the economic dialogue will see concrete results.
Sounds like more golf rounds ahead. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for the time.
Thank you very much.